From Good Shepherd in Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Art Works on Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes to make their home what we affectionately call upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome local actor and producer Adrian Miranda. Adrian is a born and raised native of Washington Heights and is a multi-hyphenate creator, writer, director, producer, and lead actor in the sitcom comedy web series Gross Anatomy. He also happens to be a physical therapist. His goal is to democratize healthcare through story-driven television and entertainment. He is the owner of a content creation company based in Washington Heights called Gross Anatomy Studios, Inc., where he creates multimedia content for individuals and organizations ranging from live action to animation to tech. He also has a 3-year-old Chihuahua Poodle mix named Simba and is a member of the Big Apple Lindy Hoppers, a swing dance performance group based here in New York City. We're going to talk to him about his work on and off the camera and so much more. But first, let me welcome you, Adrian, to Inwood Art Works on Air. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
You betcha. Well, first off, I'm going to say you're arguably the most famous Miranda in Inwood right now. So thanks for being here. And I'm going to say we'll find out who argues.
Arguably? Okay.
Yes,
thanks.
arguably. There you go. All right. So I just want to make sure we get that out of the way first.
Thank you. It's on record.
It's
just
on
so
record,
we know. Okay?
So we know, arguably. As you say in your bio, your goal is to democratize healthcare through story-driven television entertainment. What moved you to pursue that kind of? It's like a statement of purpose in your work.
Yeah. So it's funny because it took me a while to make that statement. I had to kind of almost like reverse engineer myself. Like, why do I love to create comedy and storytelling and actual characters with plot and depth and complexities and dualities? And I had to go back to my childhood. So the story kind of goes, the short version is, I was in physical therapy school, about to graduate. It's my last semester. It was an orthopedic surgery class. And I walk out into like the student union, I guess it would be called, where we're having our classes. And literally what they say that a light bulb goes off, that's what a eureka moment. I was like, I have to put this on television. So the journey began. But over the years, I get that question. Be like, what made you want to do this? What was the purpose? And I would say, I just love television and I love physical therapy and I want to help people. There was more behind that. So when I was a kid, I think must have been 7, 8 years old. My mom suffered from hip pain and she was an au pair and cleaning houses. And they went to a bunch of doctors, got hip replacement surgery. And I guess this was in 1994, 92, 93, 94. And so still the kind of the early stages of a successful surgical procedure. And so my mom had her hip replacement, and I remember it clearly. My grandmother on my dad's side was taking care of us. My mom and dad walk in, and I overhear my father saying, we can't go back to physical therapy. And I remember that word, in Spanish it's like terapia or rehabilitación. And we can't go back there to my grandmother. And he was like, it's too expensive. So I didn't know any better. All of a sudden, me and my siblings and my dad are taking turns staying with my mom in the room that's closest to the bathroom and helping her get up and go into the bathroom. And I realized that stuck with me, almost like this little kind of like nugget stayed in the back of my head and my brain that said, hey, there's a lot of people who don't have access to healthcare, much less physical therapy, my career, my profession. And so fast forward, I'm treating and I'm realizing patients saying, I can't come back because my copay is too high. I can't come back because my benefits are done, because the insurance stopped paying for it. And it was really that I think I didn't want anybody else to go through what my mom and family went through. My mom walked with a limp for 13 years. It wasn't until I was graduating that my mom got her revision done. And at that time, I'd been in a lot of surgeries. So I started my career really early. I was 22 when I started practicing, and I was just so intense. Like, I just wanted to be like the best.
I've never had that feeling about you being intense about something.
Yeah, funny. I know, right? I just come across as just laid back. Like,
slacker.
I know, right? I get that never. But so one of the things was that, I wanted to be really good at being a physical therapist, even though I had this idea of making a TV show one day. And it was really to give access through television, through the medium of nowadays your cell phone, any kind of screen, to educate people, but in the way that you can get free physical therapy by watching the content, and you can also get entertained, and you can also learn about a condition or a problem before it even occurs. Or you can share it with your aunt because, oh my gosh, Thea, you remind me of this character in the show. Also, she has an ankle problem like you do. Go watch this episode, or watch this segment, or watch this clip. So that was it. So it was really from childhood when I was, 7, 8 years old, seeing my parents not be able to afford rehab after hip replacement. And my dad worked for the city. So my dad, didn't make a lot of money to begin with, but he was a city worker. So good benefits, right? We assume that. To being a physical therapist and seeing the healthcare system early on, I guess this was like 2008. Well, I was a student doing my internships. It was like 2005, 6, 7. Graduated, started practicing in 2009. Seeing the healthcare system, as we see now, starting to be broken. And I said, as a kid, we're in Washington Heights. I grew up on 176th Street in Audubon, which, if you know anything about the neighborhood, not a really nice place to grow up in. I wasn't allowed outside. So, my father, rest in peace and bless his soul, but he didn't believe in sports and activity. So I was stuck in the house. I would kick a soccer ball around, break things, dribble basketball, watching the NBA finals.
Until they make sure you go outside.
Pretty much. Yeah, I was trying to rebel. But no, but it was study. Education was going to get you out of the hood. Education was going to get you out, right? And so that was kind of the idea. So I watched a lot of television, the 90s sitcoms, you name them. I watched them. I loved them. And all those 90s movies. And there was some power about, hey, in the novela last night, this happened. Everybody's talking about it at the supermarket, the bodega, at the church, right? Or when I'm getting my hair cut as a kid, they're talking about the news because, pineapples are going to help your diabetes, So it was like fast. It was the speed of lightning. And I said, healthcare is so slow. Healthcare is prohibitive. There's a lot of barriers. We're seeing it now. So let me go into entertainment. Wild idea, I know.
Well, I tell you what, I think it's wonderful that you're, essentially, encouraging people to take better care of their health through the medium of television or web series, whatever. Because I said, like this. The idea manifested for your health-focused web series, Gross Anatomy. Would you mind telling your viewers about it?
Yeah, so Dr. Dennis is a failed physical therapist. He gets into a bad situation with a business partner of his. He decides to go back to school, to graduate school for education, and it happens to be that his mother's the dean. It happens to be that he's failing out, and then his only way of getting back on top is to teach these rowdy GED students in the science class, anatomy. If they fail, he fails out, and so that's the series.
When did you say to yourself, "I'm going to choose to fuse both my passions together"?
After that surgery class,
Yeah.
That was that moment. Yeah, I walked out. I literally kind of paused, and everybody's walking around me, almost like a dream sequence in a TV, kind of like Glee or something. And I was like, I got to be on TV, and I kept walking, literally. And so, I said, I have to get this on. This is what happened. Hold on. I got to get this on TV, and I have to be on TV. Okay. That was it. That literally was what I said to myself right after that class, walked in the doors, stopped. I got to get this stuff on TV, and I got to be on TV, and then continue. But I said I need to be the best at physical therapy and healthcare first. So I spent the first 4 or 5 years just going so hard into the science.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, as one who's been in the thick of it all, both the science and the media side of things, and also obviously on camera, do you have any advice or lessons learned for those filmmakers out there who are trying to do what you're doing and trying to make a name for themselves as a content creator?
Yeah, and I'm still learning too. We were talking before the recording about the fundraising and the marketing and all the non-fun stuff. And I got some coaching from somebody called Jeff Deverett. He was a distributor and then became a director, writer for like teen sports films on Netflix. Sold 7 films, and the fun part, the summer camp part, is the production, like the acting and the writing and even maybe the editing if you're into that. The hard part is the marketing, the distribution. It's the captions, the subtitles. It's finding the mediums to put it out there. It's getting attention. It's doing the social media. It's everything afterwards. That's like really, really the hard part. So I would say treat it as a business. I worked in health tech. So for a bit and freelancing, and part of what I learned in the health tech sector is you're pitching investors to give you money for an idea or something that you've built. In film, which you can tell me, if you've seen this experience, is that you're also pitching people who have money to invest in you, and then you're going to make money back somehow through advertising or through ticket sales or through something. And so one thing is, if you make your passion project, your film, your dream, you should think about, if you want to make a career, how are you going to make money off of it? Mm-hmm. So my productions have made me income because people see and say, oh, you're a physical therapist and you know how to make film, video. Can you help me with my social media content? Can you help me with this? Can you help me with this tech thing? So it was more of almost like a resume, like a portfolio. Mm-hmm. If I can do this, I can do that for them. But it hasn't quite been like, I'm getting paid for gross anatomy itself. So I'm waiting to get approval for Video Direct on Prime. So I submitted that last month. I had to do another revision last week. But the idea is, even if it's on Amazon Prime, I still have to market it and put it out there. That's why I've been really bullish on Instagram recently, and test things out, find your market. And the other part is, just like a business, find your target audience. What's their age? What's their demographics? What's their income? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? Where do they reside location-wise? So once you know all that, and I had that, and I met a producer 3 weeks ago to film Meetup, and I was like, I'm really having trouble. I think I shot myself in the foot with this education, comedy, and anatomy, and I get put into you should be in education, and it's oh, this is funny. There's not much education in it, and so I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. But I'm not doing anything new. I'm doing what Scrubs did. I'm doing what Bill Nye the Science Guy did. And my idea after that moment in the class, after the class, was I want to be like Bill Nye 2.0. What Bill Nye did, I want to make it into actually characters, because we recall things through stories and people. Aaron did this funny thing yesterday. Aaron said this. It was hilarious, So we remember things and act, and our behaviors change, I believe, through stories. That's why stories are very powerful and they carry on. That's why Shakespeare is still very relevant. A lot of the new West Side Story. I was Bernardo. It took me until the third week of, we had 4 shows a week, until the ninth show to realize this is Romeo and Juliet. And so, Adrian, welcome to the world.
Well, and maybe you're doing the same thing with gross anatomy. They're watching this and they're going, oh, wait a second. This was my anatomy physiology class in junior year in high school. I was trying to learn about the enzymes. And, oh, this makes sense. Yeah. So I say kudos to you again. It's people don't know they're learning. And I think that's wonderful, that hopefully that your series gets picked up by HBO or Max or whoever they're calling themselves, themselves these days. I'm really glad you said what you said about, you got to be your own advocate and your own distributor. Mm-hmm. It doesn't stop by getting a distribution channel. You still have to keep pushing it out there. Yeah. Since you are in the content creation business, I'm dying to ask what is next for Gross Anatomy Studios?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm pushing the web series to be, either, optioned or purchased or produced. And obviously, it can live on its own right now. Mm-hmm. But the idea is, this is kind of like a proof of concept. And then when we go into a 22-minute, episodic, 6 episodes a season nowadays, it'd be nice to be like 22 like it was back in, back in the day. But, I'll take what I get. And and I get it. I'm outside the industry. But I'm also, you see the reports of Hollywood, kind of like things are changing in Hollywood. There's a lot of people saying, hey, Hollywood's changing, and, what's next for the industry. But what's next is, honestly, pushing the web series sitcom. I also have these short sketches, which I do. It's like 2-minute little sketches about a condition, I have a Hamlet kills Laertes and fixes his carpal tunnel syndrome. And so I have that. I have a Mary Poppins rotary cuff one. Actually, and at that film event, I met a musician and I think Division II basketball player. And we're going to do I was supposed to do a sketch parody of Hustle, the movie Hustle with Adam Sandler that came out, I think 2 years ago now. And so we talked, and he liked the idea, and we're going to meet up and block and choreograph it.
Great.
And see if we can do that. So, depending on, if there's a budget for it right now, I will do kind of the sketch short form stuff that's still narrative based and parody based. But really right now it's pushing the series out to get picked up or get noticed by it. And I did have a pitch deck created for the web series before I even made it that looked very child friendly. And so a lot of times when I met with people like a consultant or somebody from a studio would talk to me and just give me like an hour Zoom, they'd be like, oh, it looks like a kid's show. So as a result, I became a member of the Children's Media Association, partially because I would get messages on LinkedIn. I would get messages told in person. One of my actors, situations would happen where these 50-year-old people are watching my shows, my content with their 10 to 12, 13, 14-year-old children. And I was like, it's co-viewing. I did it. And that was my goal. That really was my intention. But you're told by marketing, you have to have a demographic of 25 to 45-year-olds, 65 plus, or 10 to 12 years old. And it kind of crossed those boundaries. So that was the intention. And so I changed my language. But now I saw that it actually was working. Like there was co-viewing happening.
Well, that's what you want. You want people to keep talking about it. And I think it's also important to listen to that feedback.
Yeah.
And seeing where you can and how you can grow. And, just because you think your distribution channel is one way does not mean it can't also include others.
Yeah.
And also it's about finding more audiences and crossover audiences. Which is really important.
And so the reason I said it was because there's kind of two angles of it. Is I could take my current web series and kind of adapt it to more of a teenage audience and make it kind of a little bit more like, Mr. Iglesias on Netflix or Glee type of things. And kind of hanging with Mr. Cooper would kind of be a good one.
Remember, there's funding and education too.
Correct.
A lot of funding, a lot of money in education.
To get that funding is a challenge, though. It's like it's there.
To get funding is a challenge all the time.
Correct.
So
exactly.
My point is like by opening up more audiences, you open up your more opportunities for funding and for distribution. And because at the end of the day is like there's our industry is so specialized that cable started this whole thing off about there's a channel for everybody. I mean there's a channel for Dateline. I mean for God's sakes. I mean you go on to Roku channel or whatever. It's like it's just the same episode. Like talk about like Family Ties would have its own channel. Do you know what I mean? It's like its own sitcom. It's like it's all it is if there's enough programs, obviously, but maybe if there's not. But I think that we're in a day and age now where it's so specialized and the distribution is the net is so wide. There's a place for you. There's a place for everybody. It's just about finding that audience.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's what the advice I give people is like, change different things. For example, even just on Instagram, right? I was pushing it. So when I met that filmmaker, I said, I don't know what my audience is. I think I shot myself in the foot. And he's like, wait, where is it set? In the GED class. He's like, hold on. How many GED students in the U.S. are there? And we did the math right there. I was like, you have a target audience, total addressable market of probably like 1.5 million GED students. And so like, just start there. So I marketed to GED students. And then there was a little bit of like some groups that wanted to put my stuff on their feed, which is like 30,000 members. So to just get views would be helpful. But then they were like, it's not quite the science curriculum, the GED. So it didn't work out. Then I went to medical assistants. And they let me post it on their groups, which is groups like 10,000, 20,000. And like my YouTube views have gone up. Like my vidIQ analytics literally have a spike up since March. And I'm like, oh, it's finally working. But all my like suggested like keywords are terrible, but I'm still getting views. And I was like, oh, cool. I put in the right audience. On Instagram, instead of GED, after 3 weeks, I said, I'm getting some. I changed it to actors. And I grew in the past month, literally about 120 followers. Just by changing, so the idea is like to your point is like I have to find the right group of people, and it might be a combination of 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I know there's a space. Like I wouldn't be going with this. This has been the inception was I guess like 13 years ago now, and I've been working in production for 8 to 9 years, and so obviously I'm still going strong. In Gross Anatomy, the web series was done in 2021, 2022. But the idea has been there for over a decade, right? So I'm not going to stop now. But the idea is like to change and pivot and see what audience really resonates with it. Because I think the idea was like, I want people, it's a show about failure. It's a show about failure. You fail in your career. You feel like a failure. You get laid off, especially like in today's current era. I have a lot of friends who are being laid off. You get laid off. Your relationships are struggling. You feel like a failure. You're failing in class. I know about that very well because in school and physical therapy, I was almost failing out 2 years. And then, it was partially because I was worried about money and finances and other factors. It's about your body failing. What are you doing? So it's all about failure. So there's a common thread there that I wrote in there, but I didn't know why I was doing. So there's kind of a common thread of failure, and perhaps there's groups of people that need that, and they want to see it, So they see themselves in those characters, and maybe they relate to it. So that's the idea. And if it's a group of actors that like it, if it's a group of teenagers that like it, if it's a group of, retirees, that's okay. I think that I've tried to write something that addresses a lot of people, and it was a hard task to do. And I knew it. That's why when people say, oh, why did you choose? I was like, it's the hardest path, but it was going to be the biggest market. I wanted to help as many people as possible. And that took a really hard road. And like you said, everything's a challenge to get money, education, finance, whatever it is. I agree with you 100%. I just decided to do that. I just felt it was my calling. It really was.
Well, good luck with your calling. Keep going at it. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and sharing your work here today. Where can people go to find out more about your work?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It has all of my work, stuff that I don't always post on social media, including animation and 3D. AdrianMiranda.com, pretty easy website. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so linkedin.com/in/AdrianMPT. On Instagram, it's at Gross Anatomy Studios, and on YouTube, youtube.com/Gross Anatomy.
Listeners, you can find the descriptions of those links in this episode, okay? Adrian, thanks so much for being here and sharing your passion for healthcare and media with us. And, don't stop believing. Keep it going, buddy.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Well, thanks again to Adrian Miranda for joining me on this Artist Spotlight edition of Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where I meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes that make their home here in northern Manhattan. If you have some time, please show some love by rating and reviewing this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. Many thanks to Church of Good Shepherd here for hosting us, and to HideSites.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation to Inwood Art Works On Air, inwoodartworks.nyc/donate, or via Venmo at Inwood Art Works. Be sure to follow us on social media. Keep all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Art Works On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, and Inwood Art Works programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Art Works On Air.